Morning. This talk is going to be on what sets the stage for people to get Lyme disease. It's a common belief that if you just attack the Borrelia bacteria, you'll be well, and that's just not the case. There's things that set the stage to allow all the infections that encompass Lyme disease to grow. And what sets the stage for that is really the key to healing. So anybody that doesn't address these things is typically going to run into having chronic illness that lasts until they finally run into somebody who understands what I'm talking about and can help them through it. So that's the case with us. A significant percentage of the people we see have been to multiple doctors, never got any help, and we get the bulk of them well again. If they follow our instructions, they get well. There's our proof of this being real. So this is your Health Reclaimed, where we expose the root cause that fuel Lyme and chronic illness so you can finally heal, helping you to understand and heal the root cause of Lyme and chronic illness so you can reclaim your health and restore your life. I'm Dr. Brad Montagne, a veteran functional medicine doctor. We typically get people who have been to multiple doctors, some of the most renowned specialists, never got any help. We get them well again, and in a lot less time than they've worked with other people for. So this is going to be a really important foundational lesson for everyone to understand. So let's get into this. If we look at, when I got Lyme disease myself, that's an easy place to start because I remember it pretty well. I was under insane stress. Long-term relational narcissistic issues, and those are never good. They're never healthy, and the stress just beats your immune system up in a huge way. Most of that happens inside of the gut. It makes the gut leak. It makes the gut really toxic. It destroys your ability to digest foods very well, and your immune system is too busy dealing with all the gut issues. Back when I was in grad school, it was clearly known that over 50% of the immune system was inside of the gut. Now they're saying it's 70-80%. And I remember an opening lecture in grad school where a teacher said 50% of what you're going to learn in this school is going to be false information. Really got my attention. But she followed that with a explanation. And she said, we're going to teach you the current body of science as we know it, but research is going to prove out that half of that's wrong, and it's up to you to keep up with the research, which highlights a couple different things. People have a view of science as if it's infallible and it's godlike, and anything that it says or proves must be true, and therefore we have to follow it, and that's just not the case. The amount of manipulation on science because of people being paid under the table to make preferential statements so that some industry can sell some kind of therapeutic intervention. Pharmaceutical industry is famous for that. 40% of the best articles in the best peer-reviewed journals in the world have what's called spin on them. The results aren't truly represented by the study itself. It suggested that occurs at least 70-75% of the time in America. Money fuels all of the science, and that's true of the alternative healthcare industries too, supplement industries. They do the same thing. There's just a lot of dishonesty in it. So I'll throw that one out right at the beginning. The high stress, it beat up my immune system. I got 2 deer ticks, Lyme ticks, in my left armpit, woke me up in the middle of the night. Whether I'd been outside and I picked those up or those came in the house, there were many times I was woken up in the middle of the night with ticks crawling on me in the bed. We lived in a very tick-infested area, and the amount of ticks were absolutely just insane there. So hard to say whether a tick check would have picked that up. I typically shower at night. You can usually find them. These might have climbed on me in my sleep in bed. But the boring aching pain was very significant. There's some other things that set the stage. Medications are really huge as far as this goes. Antibiotics, those destroy the gut integrity. allow pathogens to grow. That beats up the immune system. The antibiotics directly depress the immune system, and then what it does to the gut, especially when they're taken orally, which most are, that will destroy the gut lining, the gut flora, then pathogens grow, and that can be a way. Food intolerance, once again, it destroys the gut, the integrity of the gut wall. It puts the immune system in a hyper-alarm state. It's dealing with all the toxicity inside of the gut, and it has no power or strength to fight incoming infections. We look at some of the other drugs out there, NSAIDs, your aspirin, Aleve, Motrin, ibuprofen, things along that line. Those cause bleeding of the lining inside of the gut. They destroy the gut lining, with the gut lining, it destroys the gut flora, and there you have the gut preoccupied with all the toxicity inside of the gut. We have steroids. They do the same thing with the gut. We have antifungals do the same thing with the gut. We have antivirals do the same thing with the gut. We look at a lot of supplements out there. They're fairly toxic. They're going to destroy the gut integrity too. Most capsules are not clean at all. They say vegetable capsules, methylcellulose, cellulose capsules, things along that line. Those are made kind of up the road from where I used to live. There was a paper processing plant that later got into making rayon. After the rayon trial, then they went into making cellulose. And the process for making the cellulose is so toxic, they had some valving problems when they first opened up that line. And it was less than 6 months. What they call the wort, the liquid that went through all the pipes in there, was so toxic it rotted out the stainless steel pipes, valves, and pumps in less than 6 months. So it's the byproduct of all that makes all those cellulose capsules, and they're just not clean. And looking at the industry, they do have clean capsules, not huge quantities. They're too expensive. People undercut everything. And there's a bunch of standards of the industry. So that lets you know whether you're talking pharmaceuticals or supplements. If they're in capsules, you can almost guarantee that they're toxic. And that's another thing to add to it. We look at another odd thing that has caused some of the transfers is undercooked meats. Venison is one of the incidences with that. But that same thing can happen with cattle in tick-infested areas where people like to eat uncooked meat. It's kind of crazy to do that when you understand gut physiology, or just raw, blood raw. Either one, those Lyme bacteria and the co-infections can survive the stomach acid and get in that way. We have some other ways that people aren't really aware of. You see on threads, people asking the questions whether sexual interaction can transfer Lyme disease. We've seen people that a family member got a blood transfusion and at different varying times. One blood transfusion was when a mother just about hemorrhaged to death after giving birth. She got a blood transfusion. There was a lot of bad infections in that blood. One country, that child got sick with all the things were in the blood transfusion. Lyme disease and all the co-infections were part of all that. Later, that person got married, they transferred that to their spouse, transferred it to all the children, and there you had the transfer of a multitude of ways. Lyme bacteria, particularly, I don't know if they looked at the co-infections, but particularly Lyme bacteria, it's been found in all the fluid compartments inside the body. So it's found in the blood, and when they do a transfusion or do a blood draw, so say if you're going to donate blood, they just ask you not to donate blood if you have an active infection going on. Who's going to know that? But that's kind of crazy. Statistics are that 2 to 3% of the blood supply in Minnesota and Wisconsin is infected with Lyme disease. And looking at the people that commonly give blood and plasma typically are people that are down and out. They just need any way to get $1. And so they sell their blood. With the story I just said, you have placental transfer, nursing, and transfer through sexual fluids, all in that one family. So they're not the only family I've seen that in. That one was the most traceable back to the event that started it all. Sharing of food can do that also. Old world date of sharing a milkshake, saliva with food, sharing silverware, sharing food, sharing drinks where you get backwash. Those are common ways it can really happen with that. So if we look at what goes on inside of the gut with high stress, food intolerances, medicines, pharmaceuticals, supplements, and all that, there's a common mechanism that goes on with that. And I wrote about this in my book, Exposing Lyme and Chronic Illness, scratching the head and trying to figure out, okay, you've got all these different mechanisms that create a leaky gut. Is it a different mechanism for all of these, or is it the same thing for all of them? I personally believe it's the same thing for all of them. There's a good study that came out that I use as one of my examples on the autoimmune response that starts to create the leaky gut. Comes out of one of the medical institutions down south. I think it might have been from Texas. I got the reference in my book, but I don't remember it on top of my head right now. So what happens, there's an inflammatory response that goes on inside of the gut. And inside of your gut, if you hold your fingers up, your fingers represent the way the lining is. The lining has these projections. They're just like fingers that stick out from the gut wall. Those projections are called microvilli, and the microvilli increase the surface area of the gut about 400 times. So those microvilli, they secrete a mucus. The mucus fills the space in between the microvilli. It caps over the top of the microvilli, and that's where the gut flora lives, is in that mucus, right in between, around, and over the top of the microvilli. And it's the gut flora that goes out, interacts with all the food, that goes down what's called the lumen, the center of the gut. It's all the microbes that interact with that, do the nutrient exchange, and bring the nutrients back to the microvilli where all those nutrients can be absorbed. So the flora is an integral part of food digestion that it's really not talked about much. Healthy flora also is a check and balance for all the microbes, and it creates something like an antibiotic that keeps the pathogens from growing. We look at Candida, which is one of the worst pathogens. The cell walls of Candida in the yeast form, fungal parasite form, and in the mold form, and all of those microbes that create those forms, all yeast, all fungus, all fungal parasites, all mold, the cell walls are chitin. Our immune system can't touch chitin, can't do anything with it. And all the chitinases that I've tested, which is several, they get popular in a while. They call those biofilm busters. They're really toxic, and they don't break through the biofilms anyway. We've got a unique way to do that, but those products that claim to be primarily for that, we've never found one that works. So with the inflammation, the microvilli, they start to atrophy, and it's more like looking at your knuckles than it is looking at all your fingers sticking out. With just your knuckles showing, there's very little surface area to create the mucus. There's very little surface area for the healthy microbes in the gut to hide, and they wash out in the toilet, and that allows the pathogens to grow freely unchecked. Candida is one of the biggest. It's a whole class of yeast that morph into fungus, fungal parasite, and mold. There's other yeasts that do the same thing. Candida is just a representation of all of those. We also have some bacteria that act like yeast. They create mycelia, and they create the same different issues. With all this inflammatory issue, you start to have two mechanisms of the gut opening up and leaking. there's tight junction between all the cells that line the gut. Those start to open up and lets things inside of what's called the lumen of the gut escape in between the cells and get into the bloodstream. That preoccupies the immune system with all kinds of toxicity. That's one side of leaky gut. The other side is when those toxins get through the tight junctions that have opened up, allow these toxins to embed into the tissues of the lining of the gut. Then the immune system inside of the gut lining starts to attack the gut lining and blows holes in it that way. So you got autoimmune responses, inflammatory responses, both creating leaky gut. With that, it allows super antigens to escape into the bloodstream. LPS is one of those. Those are the cell walls of gram-negative bacteria that grow inside of the gut. And that puts your immune system in a hyper-alarm state. I've never seen a case of Lyme disease where some stage of what I'm describing going on in the gut has not taken place. So this is what I've seen in every one of hundreds of cases of Lyme disease set the stage for Lyme to happen. And then all it takes is a transfer of fluid from one host to another. So for those who believe the tick is how you get it, that's one route. And it's the route that all of the experts want to, not the experts, those in position of authority want to promote as the primary route of exchange. What I just explained about blood transfusions, sexual interaction, nursing, sharing of food, undercooked foods. We add on top of that bug bites. There are studies of looking at Lyme bacteria inside of the stomach of a mosquito. It stays from the egg to the larva through the nymph, and it's still alive in the adult mosquito when they start to have their blood meals. So that's one route of we've had people with biting flies, deer flies up in the upper Midwest. That's a common route of transfer. One person came in with the fly. They were out working in the woods. The deer fly came into the skidder. He was a logger. He slapped the fly, killed the fly, saved it, brought it into the office. The fly was dirty. He had Lyme disease. He went to the local hospital. The first time they laughed on him, he went in a second time, and the head nurse looked at him and said, well, if that's true, that's only the 5th case this week of that, causing that. It's well known that gnats, other biting flies, spiders down in the south, anything that transfers fluid from one host to another can be the route of transmission of Lyme disease. And it's really, really important for you to know, because you got all kinds of people on these forums not remembering tick bites. Tick bite doesn't mean anything to a large percent of the people that have Lyme disease. It came from another route. And if you are intimate with somebody else and you've got Lyme disease, they have it too. There's no possible way they can be protected from that. Condoms aren't enough for that. Kissing alone is an easy way to transfer that. If one person has it, they're just sharing things back and forth, and you can't get the one well without dealing with the other one in a couple. So these are some eye-opening routes that is really, really imperative for the whole community of Lyme to understand and know. So quit looking for the needle in the haystack and just get down to business and really start dealing with all this. So to capsulize this, there's always something sets the stage to create atrophy inside the gut lining. That makes a healthy flora wash down the toilet, allows pathogens to grow. Candida is representative of one of the biggest pathogens that's there. That makes the gut leak. The immune system, there's 70 to 80% of the immune system's inside of the gut. It overwhelms the immune system. There's not enough power in the immune system to deal with invading bacteria with Lyme disease, and it allows it to take hold, multiply, and grow, and create the infection that ends up being Lyme disease. So we've got to deal with all that in creative ways. I'm Dr. Brad, veteran functional medicine doctor. If you need help with this, you should get a hold of us, because we're the ones who can get people well after multiple doctors have failed consistently. And we've been doing that for decades, 4 decades. That's a long time. We release these every Tuesday, Monday, and Thursday. Click a follow and share this with a friend. Put a like on this and share it around so we can spread this news, because we're covering a lot of things that no one else does, and these are really important. So we'll see you next time. Thanks. Have a great day.